Well, thank you for the very nice introduction, certainly invitation, and all the coaching on how to give a talk to the very broad audience. Over the years, I have been talking here in SLAC a few times, but this time I feel special because in the past roughly 8 years or so, our thinking evolved, our research evolved, and it's a really good timing again to share with you what's happening in this space on the batteries for the future. This is the one people certainly talk about a lot in the past 5 to 10 years also. You know, what could be possible? We are really learning this quite a bit in the past few years. The answers become more and more clear. So after these 10 years of research, before I start to talk about batteries, I want to share with you, sitting in the Silicon Valley right here and think about what's possible, we have to look at what has been happening in the valley. Let's look at the information technology revolution. Since the invention of the first transistor, that's in 1947 in Bell Lab, to nowadays, we have been through an integration and a size reduction about 1 million times in the linear scale. The total area, the device integration now is 1 million times integration. This is where we are, 22 nanometer node. So it's really small device, a lot of integration. We have very powerful chips. So this is the revolution you can really touch. Your phones, your computers, all these gadgets, this is something you really touch. So this has been going on for the last 60 years also, this revolution. Let's look at energy in comparison. Energy has been happening very quietly for about 160 years. Really, not many people pay attention to until very recently of energy integration, not information, energy. Let's look at the batteries technology. This is the amount of energy you store in a unit of watt-hour per kilogram. From lead-acid battery, that's about 40, to the most advanced one, that's lithium-ion, somewhere around 200 also, lithium-ion. We only have 5 times. It's not 1 million times, it's only 5 times. But you can see things start to happen in a very different way. So equally important as driving this portable electronics, having the technology, information technology integration, equally important is the energy integration to have this portable power. We already seen of a lead-acid battery to start a car engine. That has been around for 100 years. And then this is happening, transportation, electrified transportation. And something happened in the last couple of years. Even the aircraft, very lightweight unmanned aircraft, drone, for example, for taking pictures, there are a lot of those units now sold on the market. So this is becoming more and more important. Then the question you ask for the future, how much more integration do we need? And how much more can we do in order to have revolution in transportation? And also in other possible applications. There's probably a lot more you can think about. So that's one perspective I want you to think about. The second one is our electrical grid. Now it becomes very familiar to everybody. Grid in the past 100 years only does one thing, is to take the electricity from it's generated to where it's used. You need to match these two closely. If there's a problem in matching that, your grid won't be stable. You can cause a catastrophe right there. So what if you can integrate storage function also into the grid? It becomes a lot more stable. You can integrate more solar, more wind power. These are intermittent energy sources. And the grid can get a lot smarter. There's a lot more you can do. So with this thinking in mind, there's a lot of potential for the applications. the batteries for the future, how do we look at these batteries? What do we need? By looking at these batteries parameters, you need to think about how much energy you store per unit weight or per unit volume. That determines the range of your electrical vehicles. And how low cost do we need it to be in order to have those revolutions happening? And can we make the battery very, very safe? You have heard about instances of catching fires. Is that an intrinsic problem, or is it something you can improve on for the future? What's the cycle life and calendar life? Can we get 3,000 cycles for the electrical vehicles? Can we get even 10,000 cycles for the electrical grid? Do we have calendar life of 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years? How much power you can pump out? That's how fast you can get the energy in and energy out. One question I would like to address today, some of you might be thinking about a similar question. One is it lithium ion or other chemistries that's needed for the future? If it's lithium ion, what do you need to do? If it's other type of a battery chemistry, what do you need to work on? And then what's the function of SLAC in doing a battery research? Will we be able to play a very important role for the future development in the batteries? So now let me come back to the batteries nowadays, where we are, where do we want to be? And then try to think about what might be the future. This is what transportation needs and electrical grid needs. So I didn't outline other applications needs such as electrical aircraft. It will be probably more requirement than transportation. This is where we are roughly. The amount of energy we store, the most critical parameter is the amount of energy we store per unit weight or volume. For transportation, per unit weight is very important. We are roughly around 200 watt-hour per kilo. We want it to be 600. So Nissan Leaf will go from 80 miles for the same size of the battery, go 3 times more. That will be 240 miles. That's a lot of mileage right there. If we can do 3 times, this revolution will happen. For the grid-scale storage, there's no requirement for the energy density because of the stationary nature of storage. But for the cost, we are somewhere around here for the cells, $250 per kilowatt hour. We want it to be $100 or lower. So we need to cut the cost roughly by 3 times. You have seen Tesla's announcement. They are doing a great job. They are doing this utility scale storage. Elon Musk announced they can do $350 per kilowatt hour for the pack. So that was very impressive. The number I'm giving you right here is for the cells. At the end, for all these applications, once the batteries become bigger and bigger, the critical thing is the battery needs to be very, very safe. What can we do to improve the safety? So with this in mind, now let's look at what's really the nature of energy storage, and then to see whether it's lithium ion or other batteries chemistry needed in order to realize the goals. Energy storage right here is about storing electrons. We know electrons has negative charge. They don't come in for free to do the work. In order to store a lot of electrons, you need to balance the charge with the positive ions, M+. M can be anything, any other atoms with positive charge. They come together, neutralize. This is how you store electrons. Electrons are tiny, but M are really, really big. So in order to minimize the overhead of storing electrons, you want to pick the right element to neutralize electrons. If you ask the question, what's the ideal element for M? You guys sit in the audience, tell me what's the ideal element for M? Hydrogen, right? That's hydrogen. Then we'll see whether hydrogen is the best one or not. Let me also mention this M coming in, if electrons and M coming in. Well, it's tough. Hydrogen pick up the electron will become hydrogen gas. So that's not ideal, right? And then oftentimes you need a host. to allow electron and M to stay. You can store a lot of them. And all the research is about getting the host to work out. It's not about getting that M+. We already know about hydrogen as a proton. We are not going to study that anymore, but it's actually the host. So now let's look at the choices right here. You know it's hydrogen element number 1. That's very lightweight. That's good. But let's look up. Realistically, lithium is the next one you will consider. You are not going to consider helium, right? That's element number 2. That doesn't work. And then this other element right there will not work. So lithium is number 3 with atomic weight of 7. And then sodium going up. Now you start to see magnesium, aluminum, zinc, and lead. Lead is used in lead-acid batteries. It's a bad choice. It's too heavy, atomic weight. But atomic weight is not the only problem right there you need to address. Now let's look at the voltage. Voltage has something to do with its electronegativity, electropositivity, right there. Lithium is the most electropositive element, will provide you high voltage. Proton right here cannot do it. 1.23 watt, you are going to split water, right, generate hydrogen. And roughly below 1.5 watt also, this is where proton can work. And then you say, if I put sodium, I gain quite a bit, but less than lithium, though. Magnesium, not too bad. Aluminum, this will go down. So this is the second thing you need to think about. The third one, what's that? That's the cost. So important. This is the cost. I look up in the international trade, how dollars per kilogram. So hydrogen is nearly free. It's a water. It's everywhere. And lead is $2 per kilogram. These are all more or less similar, all very low cost. Right? You really like to use this element in terms of cost. Now let's look at lithium. Lithium looks very expensive, $40 per kilogram. But would that matter? Actually, it doesn't matter because in lithium-ion batteries, lithium's cost is only less than 3%. Because the lithium is lightweight, you only need tiny amount. That's it to store the energy. So this is only actually less than 3% of the battery cost, the lithium cost. It really doesn't matter, right, in terms of cost. So when you look at all these parameters, and then let's look at how the batteries are operated, eventually come down to, what's the future for the batteries. So now you know the idea of having the host to store lithium and electrons. Now let's use lithium-ion batteries as an example to see how you store energy. This is cylinder cell, you cut it open. In this jelly roll, you have these particles. This is your host, graphite, carbon 6 right here to store lithium and electron as a negative electrode, lithium cobalt oxide as the positive electrodes. During battery charging, lithium all go from the positive electrodes, go through this liquid electrolyte through the battery's porous separator, go to the left-hand side. Electrons moving to the outside and then meet inside this graphite carbon, neutralize that, store a lot of lithium and electrons. During discharge, they go the opposite way and go into lithium cobalt oxide. In this process, in order to make things to work, electrons need to move inside the solid, but not inside the liquid. Inside the liquid just means you have shorting inside. And you need to have ion diffusion in the liquid, inside this crystal structure, in order to move in and out. But lithiums will not go outside, only stay inside. And then you want this structure to be stable, the volume change to be small. In order to accommodate lithium and electron coming in and out, they all have volume, particularly the ions, they have volumes. So you need to make sure that this change is small. Eventually, the interface, each of these particle surface needs to be stable. They're soaked into electrolyte for 3 years, for 5 years, for 10 years. Imagine you put something into water or into any liquid for about 10 years, what will happen? Corrosion, basically, corrosion will happen. And the side chemical reaction taking place need to be cell pathwayed. So you have a long calendar life, long cycle life. In order to make batteries to work, it's not easy. If you look at the detailed operation of the batteries, what happens when you plug in your cell phone and laptop onto the wall? This is the process happening. This is the voltage versus lithium. This is your negative electrode, that's graphite, measuring its potential versus the amount of lithium you put in during charging. This is the process of lithium cobalt oxide. When you put lithium in, electrons, you take lithium out, electrons out, its voltage is going up. Negative electrode voltage is going down. Let's look at the negative first. Below roughly about 1 watt also, the organic electrolyte is not stable. You are going to decompose, reduce organic electrolyte, forming the so-called SEI layer, solid electrolyte interface. You want this layer to be self-passivated. Then you start to put lithium and electron into graphite carbon. You store a lot of them, but make sure you don't go below 0 watt versus lithium metal. Otherwise, you start to plate out lithium metal. It grows dendrite. It's going to cause shorting, catch fire, explosion. This is the negative electrode side. Positive electrode side, you take out this lithium, this is voltage plateau, and then when it rises up to roughly about 4.3 watt also versus lithium, it starts to oxidize the organic electrolyte. You don't want that oxidation to continuously happen, so you want the surface to be self-passivated. And if you don't do that, this will oxidation keep happening, produce heat. You heat up the lithium cobalt oxide, that further increase the reaction, and then heat up even more. And battery can also catch fire this way, cause explosion. So it's quite amazing. Batteries industry is doing a great job in making the batteries safe. When you do charge, don't overcharge. Don't do too fast charging. So this maintain the battery safety right there. But this is also intrinsic mechanism built in. Battery is intrinsically not safe. You need to take care of this to make batteries safe. Now, with all this in mind, you say, well, in order to make battery to work, I need to have a positive electrode, that's my host, a negative electrode, that's my host. I need to have electrolyte that's stable. I need to have my lithium salt that's stable. I need to have my interface that's stable. I need to control charging, discharging, don't get overcharged. All this adding together, let's look at my prediction. This is my prediction, what happened in the next 15, 20 years also. Lithium ion is going to go for a long time. We will be using that. We cannot stop lead acid. Lead is so cheap. Aqueous solution, batteries. It's going to be used for a long time. The current market size of lead acid battery is much bigger than lithium ion. And we are going to still use nickel metal hydride batteries. Toyota's Prius car, the hybrid, is using nickel metal hydride. Runs 100,000 cycles right there. That's very robust. This is still going to go for a long time. So what's coming up next? If we are lucky, we might have something coming up. I'm referring to rechargeable battery, non-primary batteries. And with potential commercialization right there, I'm not talking about in the research lab, demonstrate that tiny device. I'm talking about real product possibility right here. We might see something for sodium and zinc. We might see, but probably not in a big scale. The motivation to replace lithium with sodium is small because the lithium cost is really negligible currently in the batteries. Replace that with sodium, you get lower voltage. You still use the same host as lithium-ion batteries. The cost is the same. If there's problem right there, you face the same problem. So the benefit of going to sodium is not clear yet right now. So going to zinc might not be clear yet. Other things, is the host that costs the most. So magnesium and aluminum will probably will not happen, or maybe in 15 years you might start to see something. There's no cathode, there's no good anode, there's no electrolyte. There's no salt really working yet for this battery system. This will take a long time to get there. But isn't lithium too limited on Earth? Do we have enough lithium to make battery for electrical transportation? Now let me give you some number. This is 2011's the global reserve of lithium. The reserve means it's either in the brine or either in the mineral, or we already know how much we have. They can be mined very easily. We have 40 million tons of lithium in the whole world right now. And this number is increased because we are seeing discover more and more lithium mine and brine. And in the last 3-4 years also, the discovery of reserve is actually double. Keep that in mind. This can be even double in another 5 years. Let's just use this number. Let me give you a simple calculation. Nissan Leaf, 24 kilowatt hour of battery, it runs 84 miles per charge. Inside there is 4 kilograms of lithium in there. This will allow you to make 10 billion Nissan Leaf. 10 billion. Do you know how many cars do we have in the world in operation?
3 billion.
You're not too far away. It's about 1 billion also. We have 1 billion cars in operation. So this allows you to make 10 billion Nissan Leaf. In the United States, we have somewhere around 250, 300 million cars also. So this is a lot of lithium. And then in 2009, the world production of lithium alone, 92,000 tons. This can generate 23 million Nissan Leaf. I think we have enough lithium right there. Let's say if you are ambitious, you say, I want to drive Tesla as model. This is Tesla. So 85 kilowatt hour, 265 miles, and 14 kilograms of lithium only is very light. This is a 3 billion Tesla we can make right there, okay? So this is lithium reserve, but don't forget, in the ocean, we virtually have infinite amount of lithium. It's harder to mine, we don't need to do that yet, but it's there. And then now let's look at, this is for transportation, let's look at for the grid. The world energy consumption, the power, in the given time on average, 15 terawatt of power we are consuming. Let's see, I want to store the whole world of energy consumption. Every day, 15 terawatt, 6 hours. I need a tera batteries. This is built on a Tesla's gigafactory. I want to have my tera batteries right there. That's 90 terawatt hour of battery capacity you need. That's a lot. But this actually 40 million tons of reserve allow you to build a tera battery that's 240 terawatt hour. So even power in that scale, I think we have enough lithium for doing that. It will take us a long time to get there, consume that lithium. We are going to have more reserve of lithium. So that's my conclusion of analysis. After I've been through this analysis, I'm convinced, so we need to do lithium battery research for a while. So then what do we need to do in order to go to the high energy batteries, low cost? And get down to low cost, the most powerful knob you want to tune is actually energy density. If your manufacturing cost, material cost is the same, your energy density becomes 3 times, your cost will become 1/3 for the same capacity of our batteries. For the negative electrode, we have been using graphite for 20-something years now. We want to go up to 10x, so silicon is possible. And actually lithium and phosphorus, these all store a lot of lithiums right there with 10 times higher capacity. The traditional positive electrode, this is the host, lithium manganese oxide spinel, lithium cobalt oxide layer structure. This is your cell phone, this is an, I think this is an GM's DeWalt, and lithium iron phosphate. And to get to 10x, there's actually also choices right there. Material like sulfur, very low cost, is everywhere, it's side product of petroleum refining. So we have those very nice materials right there. So it has not happened yet. We could use this material for our batteries. There are challenges. But let's look at where this potential, this material can give us the energy density, where the potential can be. This is energy per weight, based on these active materials alone, how many electrons they can store. I compare current technology using graphite carbon with these different cathode. This is what graphite can give you. For fair comparison, it's active material with active materials. This is 3x line. Silicon with lithium sulfide combination, will allow you to get to 3x. And if you are more greedy, this possibility of lithium metal and sulfur gives you 6x. So this possibility right there, but we haven't got there yet because there's too many materials problem inside. So we have not been able to realize the full potential of these new batteries chemistry based on the lithium system. So coming down to the science question, past 20 years, what we learned is we need a stable host. There's no chemical bond breaking to store lithium through intercalation. But the new material requires you to have paradigm shift because chemical bond will be broken during lithium and electrons coming in. Host atoms do not move. Host atoms move to very long distance. Small structure change, complete structure change, small volume expansion, 10 times more volume expansion happen in these materials. So the challenge we are facing is completely need to redesign the whole batteries, starting from materials level all the way up to electrode level, the whole battery cell level. The redesign is needed. So this has been the research direction in my group in the past 10 years since coming to Stanford and SLAC. So we have been working on anode, cathode, new type of batteries chemistry to store large scale capacity of energy for grid scale. Try to think about battery safety. Need to develop new tools to look at what's happening, particularly in SLAC right here, using single-chunk X-ray, working with Mike Tony and his team to look at what's happening inside the batteries. Now, let me give you some of the scientific progress and what we have been able to achieve. So these achievements really all come from past 20 years, what happened in nanotechnology, the ability to control material with size, shape, interface, cell assembly. You can basically say, I want to make this material with materials A on top of materials B with a nanoscale precision. That's the capability in the past 20 years now available, allow you to redesign the battery materials, which could not work before. Now we try to make them to work. So silicon is my home run, since beginning. This is the example of a silicon crystal structure can store 1 silicon atoms for 4.4 lithium. You calculate that. This is the capacity you gain. It's 11 times of graphite carbon. But the problem you're facing is for silicon volume to expand to 4 times. Once they expand to 4 times, they break. You lose electrical contact. There's many other bad things happen. So there are 2 major challenges we try to solve. How do we avoid breaking? How do we build stable solid electrolyte interface? Remember, each of the silicon particles, they're going to react with organic electrolyte. Their surface is so reactive. If they are not stable, they keep expansion and contraction going on. It won't be stable to build up that stable batteries. This is the challenge we need to face, solve these 2 problems. After I joined the faculty right here, my first real paper, working on battery is this one, 2008, January, coming out. This is probably the landmark paper and really showing this a new approach. You can work on battery to solve problems. So if you look at the citation, this one is now 2,700 times citation by now. But recognize the film will break and the big particle will break. And the nanowire at that time, the hypothesis is that the diameter is too small and the volume expands once lithium inserted into crystal structure, they will not break. You can ship the electrons going into the nanowires, lithium coming from the surface. So at least we can solve the breaking problem. So this is the first significant progress along this direction. But let's look at what's happening inside the materials. This is the silicon of a single crystal made by so-called vapor liquid solid growth using a tiny nanoparticles to catalyze the growth into nanowires. And they're single crystal. You put lithium in, and lithium cleaves silicon and silicon bonding, and from lithium-silicon bond, it becomes amorphous. And silicon atoms move to very long distance in order to have 4 times volume expansion. Eventually, the whole thing really break into amorphous phase. But they're still connected. So that was exciting when we saw this. And working with Mike Tony and Johanna and the whole team right here in SLAC, we were able to use X-ray to watch what's happening in operando. So you basically charge up your battery, discharge your battery to study what's happening. So this is one of these pouch cells with X-ray coming in. We designed this structure with this mesh of stainless steel, grow these nanowires out. So when X-ray coming in, we can look at just the edge right here, not really looking onto the stainless steel, but only these nanowires. So this is a process, so certainly too many data right there, but the conclusion is you can watch what's happening during charging, discharging, see the crystal structure change, see what's the new phase formation, and we use this to learn a lot of how silicon works. Let me also show you the parallel development of a new tools of in situ transmission electron microscopy happening on campus. So we have a holder right now on Stanford campus to measure a single nanowire batteries. This is a holder with piezo electrical control. You can move your sample in and out, left and right, up and down. And this is lithium cobalt oxide cathode, ionic liquid electrolyte that has very low vapor pressure. You put it into the high vacuum condition of a TEM chamber, they survive. You apply a voltage driving the electrons, lithium diffuse and lithium and electron neutralize, insert it into crystal of silicon. And you can use this technique to see individual particle lithium reaction process as well. Let me share with you some of this video. This is one of them. This is a silicon nanowire coated by copper with about 200 nanometer in diameter. This is the scale bar. Now you see what's happening is you start to drive electrons and lithium will go in. Now insert it into the crystal structure. This whole nanowire is not broken. They survive. But what's broken is the copper coating on the surface. So imagine if you want to do a materials coating to improve the battery, this is the evidence. This silicon expansion is too powerful. They're going to break the surrounding. You cannot really constrain the silicon this way. This is another example of particles, but this is much bigger size right now. It's 800 nanometer in diameters. Let's focus on this big particle. You start to see crystalline silicon shrink. This is a lithiated amorphous silicon. And then the whole thing, at the beginning, the whole reaction is so fast. Now it's slowing down. That's because there's too big of stress buildup. And it's very hard for silicon to expand towards outside. The outside shell constrains the inside. At some point, the silicon particle cannot take this stress strain anymore. It starts to break. And then this is the failure mechanism, one of the major failure mechanisms. The battery will die. So we also use a technique like this to identify and combining with other technique of SEM to see critical breaking size. And below certain size, you know they don't break. Above certain size, they start to break. This will help you to do the material design, how small silicon need to be in order to survive without breaking. So this is our generation 1, and we have been through a 10 generation of material design. Try to understand what's happening and really make silicon to work. So our generation 2 is this core shell structure with amorphous silicon to store lithium. The core is a stable mechanical and electrical support. And we also thought about using hollow silicon nanoparticles. And the interior space allow volume to allow this stress can be relaxed and without breaking. And eventually the conclusion becomes, as long as silicon, they are small enough, they will not break. However, what about the interface? If silicon volume expansion and contraction keeps happening, you don't have a stable interface. Even though they are not broken, you don't have a stable interface. Your battery's charging, discharging cycle will not be stable either. Another concept breakthrough is this double wall hollow tip really coming in. This is, I think, also a landmark piece of work to show people, we didn't know how to handle those materials with volume expansion, how to form stable interface. Now we start to have an idea we could do that. That is having a double wall hollow structure, silicon inside, outer coating is mechanically strong, allow lithium to go through. Once silicon volume expands, they expand towards inside instead of going towards outside. You have outer surface to form a stable interface. And then we have other generation of design, how to think about low cost, how to incorporate new type of polymer to make it simpler. And this has been through 10 generations. So we actually have having our 11th generation coming very soon. But let me share with you a couple of generations and share with you what's the thinking of materials design. Let me highlight the generation 8. Having nanostructures are fantastic, they don't break. But having nanostructure, many of you don't know, unless you work on battery, they also will do bad things also. The number one bad things they do is, it's very hard to pack them very dense. And then there are tiny particles. In order to build up enough of capacity per unit area of your battery's electrode, you need to load a lot of layers of nanoparticle going up. You need roughly about 200 layers of nanoparticle in order to have that practical capacity loading. Then your electrons need to jump about 200 times from bottom to the top during charging. That doesn't work. The resistance is too high. And also, nanostructures has too high surface area. That's absolutely bad for the batteries. And the side chemical reaction will scale at least linearly with the surface areas. And then you have too much side chemical reaction, you consume lithium, you consume electrolyte, the batteries die also fast. So we designed this structure of permanganate structure packing this silicon nanoparticle. Let's look at the 2D cross-section. Each of these particles with a pre-designed space with this carbon coating and pack them together, forming permanganate-like type of structure. And this way, you are solving 3 problems at the same time. Number one is you pack them very nicely. Volumetric capacity becomes higher. Number two is you seal this particle, secondary particle with carbon. Electrolyte only contact outer surface. You reduce the effective surface area seen in the electrolyte. And your cycling efficiency goes up. And then you also connect all these particles together with conducting carbon. And electrons do not need to jump 200 times. They are having a highway of a transport pathway, shipping from top to bottom. And then they only need to jump into the silicon at the end. So this design actually helps solving 3 big problems at the same time. If you prefer not to see this cover image right there, in SLAC we have very creative artist, Greg, really drawing these permanganate batteries. I mean, this is really probably the best drawing. I really love this. I don't know whether Greg is in the audience right here. Thank you for doing great work. So this is the real structures we made. I won't go into the detail how we made this, but believe us, we can make it. These are the secondary particles with different size, roughly around somewhere around here. Each of these secondary particles, we are packing roughly 100,000 nanoparticles inside. That's a lot of nanoparticles, right, forming the secondary particle. You see each of these nanoparticles with empty space still right there. You can etch away silicon, only leaving behind carbon. You can see this carbon framework in there. These allow us to really show we can go to a realistic capacity loading, 3.7 milliamp per centimeter square, cycling very stably. This is due to you change the cycling rate, but it's actually very stable. Cycling Coulomb efficiency is very high. So it's really getting somewhere now. So this is the one, I think, another landmark of showing the disadvantages of nanostructure could be overcome. But we didn't stop right there. Silicon nanoparticle, the cost is still high. Eventually, we want to make cost also low. Didn't we think about university? Usually cost has nothing to do with our university research or national lab research, right? Usually we think that way. Actually, indeed, it has a lot to do with our research. Cost is not only the engineering problem, there's a lot of science you need to address. So let's come back to think about this. We know big particles, they will be broken, micron size. But they're very, very, very cheap. If you can make micron particle to work, that's very exciting. We know micron particle, you put lithium in, they're going to break, right? About 300 nanometer also, they're going to be all broken. Now we have learned about silicon for the past 8 years. Can we use what we learned to solve micron particle problem? The best data will be coming in my generation 11, but today I will show you our generation 7 only, working with Professor Zhen Nanbao in chemical engineering on campus. So we are thinking about putting self-healing function inside the batteries. So self-healing is a polymer, has been used in Professor Bao's lab, and that's based on the hydrogen bonding. This polymer chain has a lot of hydrogen bonding. If you break them, this polymer chain can move around at room temperature. They find each other and snap in, and they will heal. So Zhena has been using that for making artificial skin. Now we use those polymers for making self-healing batteries. So based on this idea, let me show you how exciting the self-healing polymer can be. This is a balloon. Balloon surface, we coat it with self-healing polymer. They look black color because we blending in carbon black in order for you to see it. Also made the self-healing polymer conducting electronically. Now you blow up this balloon. This volume expansion is a lot more than 4 times, more than what silicon's volume expansion is. Look at the electronic conductivity. You still maintain the carbon black electronic conductivity. It decreased to a certain degree, but once you shrink back, it comes back to almost the initial value. The self-healing polymer is very powerful, keeping everything together. So if you look at this, this is the micron particle through to 8 micron. Regular polymer binder used in battery will decay very fast, the capacity. But self-healing polymer now allow us to start to cycle this micron particle with some capacity over roughly about 150 cycles also. So it's getting better. This is generation 1 of self-healing. Generation 2 will get a lot better. Now with this thinking, Stanford, SLAC, Silicon Valley combination is very powerful. I truly believe this combination allows us to do something which is very hard to do in other places. So entrepreneur spirit is always around this community. Actually, SLAC is closer to VC than Stanford is. You guys just right across the street, right here. This is the company I founded in 2008, based on some of the initial technology breakthrough. But over the years, this company has developed a lot. So there's actually a real product on the market right now. And this one in the largest scale production, 280 watt per kilogram, 40% higher energy. I actually have a real sample right here. If some of you haven't seen it yet, so I would like to show you. So then you know it's real. It's not only in the lab, it's actually real on the market. It's very different going from a research lab into the real application. This is the battery made by Amprius. Start to use silicon anode in there. That's this one, 700 watt per liter, 280 watt per kilogram. So this is happening. But I can tell you, in order to make a product like this, you need to accumulate maybe somewhere between 20 to 40 publications work. There's a lot of things, a lot of challenges along the way. University and national lab usually don't address, but company will be able to address in order to make a real product. So where do we go from there? We learn a lot from silicon. We are ready to tackle an even more challenging problem. Remember I was showing you lithium metal and sulfur give you 6x of capacity. So when Steve come back to Stanford, he and I have a few brainstorming sections. Just to let my students know, we work very hard. Actually, the brainstorming happened around Christmas time, right? Usually, when Christmas time, you guys go home. We went to our office brainstorming. So there's one brainstorming section right there. We all think lithium metal needs to be worked on. This is a half a century old problem. This is the holy grail of the batteries, most electropositive element, the most lightweight element other than hydrogen and helium. So you cannot do better than lithium metal. Lithium metal is the one to go. And, but it has a lot of problems. One is this dendrite formation. There's always hot spot during electrodeposition. And this forming dendrite can cause shorting, and this reduces your cycling Coulomb efficiency coupled together with a side chemical reaction. Remember, we need a stable interface. There's never a stable interface right there because of electroplating. And how do you do that? And we hire a couple of students and postdoc together. A couple of them are sitting in the audience. It's absolutely important. You need an interface. Let me emphasize this. Needs to be chemically stable as well as mechanically stable. If you look into the literature, oftentimes mechanical stability was emphasized the most. But you look at lithium metal melting point is so low, just a little bit above 100 degrees C, right? And close to 200 only. So the bonding is so weak. And if you touch lithium metal, it's so soft. You really don't need much mechanical strength at all. But why lithium metal is so powerful? Because shorting, explosion, penetrate through ceramic separator. That's because it's chemically very powerful. It likes to react almost with anything it sees. Once it starts to react with material surrounding the lithium, it creates crystal structure change, stress. It breaks these even very strong ceramics. This is what I call almost like playing Tai Chi, right? You're playing Tai Chi is very, very slow, but Tai Chi is so powerful. I think lithium's secret is it's chemically very powerful. That's his Tai Chi. So we need to control that. So we need to find something to control lithium's Tai Chi. That's this. We identify first one is amorphous silicon. Turn out amorphous silicon does not react with lithium so badly. Lithium ion can go through, but lithium metal cannot change this amorphous carbon. And we want to make it into this hemisphere instead of a flat film. The reason is mechanical consideration. If you have something flat attached to this bottom copper, lithium deposition happen underneath this amorphous carbon. It's going to cause a protrusion. A protrusion causes a local curvature. Local curvature will break this amorphous carbon mechanically. So that's not good. We want to have this curved surface right there and only have the point contact. Once you deposit lithium, it lifts up the cap, this whole layer of amorphous carbon layer. So you can form stable deposition, and then the SEI will form on the surface. So that's the initial thinking. And this way we can make this, nanosynthesis and nanofabrication is really strong in the group. As soon as basically we come up with a new idea we want to make, oftentimes within a couple of months, students and postdocs will be able to make it happen. So this is the one, this beautiful hemisphere layer of amorphous carbon. And with a little bit linkage right there, you can peel it off, it's flexible. Now let's look at this beautiful data. This is with this carbon sphere. Once you deposit lithium onto the copper, you see this very nice column. Every lithium column is stand right there straight, and then the diameter is about 5 microns also. And then with the head layer, this amorphous carbon hemisphere is actually on the surface, forming this stable interfacial layer. And if you don't have this layer, this is control experiment, only bare copper, you see this sharp needle. When you see this sharp needle, it's scary. That's the one called shorting, right? So you don't want it. So this is stable. So the cycling, there's a Coulombic efficiency. This basically tells you if I put 1,000 electrons in, how many electrons can I get? I put 1,000 lithium in, right? That's the cycling Coulomb efficiency. Ideally, you want 1,000 out of 1,000. In reality, you might get 999 out of 1,000. We are not there yet. We get 990 out of 1,000. We still lose that 10. But we are doing much better than control. So after that, so many ideas coming in. So there's also idea of what's the ideal interfacial layer. This is a postdoc, Kai, in the group doing that. Boron nitride and graphene, mechanically, chemically, all very strong. Lithium cannot tear them apart, so why don't we use that? So now copper growth is a boron nitride on the surface, deposit lithium underneath. You see this beautiful boron nitride layer capping the lithium metal as interfacial layer. So it's getting better. So now with all this learning, that was all about anode. What about cathode? What about sulfur, right? Lithium sulfur provides 6 times. So sulfur is very challenging, but it do offer very high energy right there. Now let's look at what's the challenging of sulfur. That's this several problem right there. Every time sulfur becomes lithium sulfide, go through polysulfide process. They dissolve in the electrolyte. Dissolution means you lose control. They go into liquid, they diffuse around, doing all the bad things. And then 80% volume expansion, electronic conductivity, ionic conductivity of sulfur-related material, all very bad. And these all add together with all these problems all showing up. So we would like to address sulfur. So about 6 years now, we have strategies. Strategy 1, let's do nano encapsulation. So we have done a lot of those. Strategy 2, if there's anything dissolved into polysulfide, let's take it back. And number 3 is, don't start with sulfur. Start in the discharged state of lithium sulfide. The melting point is very high, opening up a new chemical synthesis procedure so we can do better materials control. If we do lose sulfur, let's do something about that battery separator. Utilize that sulfur. So we have come up with 4 categories of ideas. And during this process, and we also learn a lot by using an operantal X-ray scattering imaging, working with Mike Tony, with Johanna. This is an example of the cell right there. You can look at this light scattering to figure out what's the phase changes inside this sulfur battery during operation. And you can even take the video, the imaging. This is transmission X-ray microscopy imaging to look at individual sulfur particle. Things start to dissolve away, forming polysulfide. You can see where they go. And we do see something surprising, contrary to ex situ study. Only in operando you can see this more clearly. For example, polysulfide, they don't really diffuse that fast for some of the sulfur particles. So with this all learning, let me highlight just one generation of thinking of design. We know sulfur is going to volume expand, almost similar as silicon. You need to leave the space right there for volume expansion, and then with a titanium oxide coating to capture all the polysulfide. So graduate student in the lab is working on this with sulfur with this titanium oxide coating. This was one of the best performance at that time, still looking very, very good, very high capacity, up to 500 cycle, 80% capacity retention. Roughly getting to what your cell phone is having, 500 cycle with 80% capacity retention. There's often also a lot of surprise taking place. How do we utilize the polysulfide? Let me highlight one piece of work. This was done through J. Caesar. This is a battery hub led by Argonne National Lab, but SLAC is a partner institution. We have project in there and thinking about how do we utilize polysulfide for the grid scale batteries. For the time consideration, let me just jump to this one last piece of work related to the sulfur. Is we want to replace the so-called flow batteries. When you have flow batteries, right, you want to use the big tank to store the electrochemical redox molecules. Vanadium redox flow has been used, but energy density is very low. Solubility of vanadium species is low. If you put in a capital investment, to build these flow batteries, you better take out as much energy, store as much as possible. Otherwise, the cost is very high. These are the two main cost reasons: limited solubility as well as expensive membrane to isolate these two liquids right there. So within JCESA, I think my PowerPoint doesn't like me because I go over time, so it just crashed. Anyway, we have a new flow battery. This is called semi-flow with lithium metal, polysulfide. Polysulfide has very high solubility, 5 times of vanadium redox flow or above. And it forms a cell passivation layer, conduct lithium ion. You don't need to have expensive ion selective membrane. This has the potential to get to a low-cost grid-scale storage battery. This is some of the examples showing you running a couple thousand cycles. Do I have a couple minutes just to show you one last thing, tiny thing? Very quickly. I know you want to know about this. What about safety, right? So I need to finish this, otherwise I'm going to regret it. You're going to regret it. So Boeing 787, battery safety is everywhere. Under the normal operation, no accident. Accident means you bump onto your battery. So for that, engineering control is needed, build up your case very strong, like Tesla. So you won't let your car get damaged so easily. What about under normal charging and discharging condition? You have heard about laptop catch fire, Boeing 787 as well. So what's going on? The reason is, if there's a manufacturing defect or your battery charging, battery management system, that's not reliable. There's a possibility these lithium dendrite will grow across the separator and short your batteries, right? You don't want any of those happen under the normal operation. And the battery manufacturing, if it's not calibrated well, defect will form. Even welding, laser coming in, create a metallic particle embedded into your battery, this will happen. So we come up with an idea, we say, let's make batteries smarter. Inside the battery separator, embed a metallic layer, really thin, 50 to 100 nanometer also. If dendrite form halfway, let's detect it. Detection will be the voltage between this middle layer and your graphite anode. Voltage reading is close to 0, tells you shorting is halfway. Stop using your battery. If you don't do that, my battery management will do it for you. Stop your laptop automatically. Don't use it. That's it. Go back home, sleep, and anyway, go back home, fix it. So this is a metallic coating onto the separator. Very simple idea. We will be able to show with this intermediate layer, you can detect the voltage jump to 0, but between positive and the negative electron is not 0 yet. So your battery is safe. So in the future, I think every battery should have 3 electrodes: positive electrode, negative electrode, in my sensing electrode in the separator. Then no accident like this will happen anymore. So it will be a lot safer. Anyway, let me conclude, and I'm showing you some examples to show you there's a lot you can do in the lithium-ion battery space. And also my calculation over the years, I convinced myself lithium-based batteries has a long runway. We are not running out of lithium anytime soon. I'll stop right here. We'll be happy to take any question. Before that, let me thank the whole research group and all the collaborators, very talented students and postdocs. Some of them are sitting right here. I'm very proud of you. Continue the good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So what do you do if you detect 0 voltage on that intermediate layer in the Boeing 787? Can't go home.
So if I detect that layer right there, I know the battery is halfway shorted. And then don't charge up your battery anymore. During charging, electron come into anode, lithium come into anode, you just keep growing dendrite. If you stop charging, the lithium metal dendrite will not grow. Then it stops. It rests right there. That's one thing I could do. And if I want to be looks very smart, I can do second thing also. So I have the sensing layer and the anode. There's a shorting of dendrite right there. I could potentially pass a current, I burn away that dendrite and remove the short. That will be the second thing I think I want to do research on. The third thing you could do will be absolutely replace the battery, get a new one in. Yeah.
At the beginning of your talk, you said that one of the goals was to increase the energy density by a factor of 3 maybe, and decrease the cost by a factor of 2.5, something like that.
Yep.
Okay. Then you showed a slide where some of these things might happen by 2030, or not much before, with the complexity that you're describing. Suppose you made this whole project into a Manhattan project, and you increase the funding by a factor of 10, 20. Would that help? Would it accelerate the process or not?
Sounds very attractive. Funding increased by 10 to 20. So let me clarify. When I show this, I don't mean some technology will coming in 2030. What I mean is lithium-based, lithium-ion and lithium-based battery will be used beyond 2030. Just keep using that. This technology might come in such as silicon anode right now, 2015. And then its use will be increased over the next 5 to 10 years also as the main mechanism to increase the energy density. And lithium metal and sulfur might come in sometime later, maybe in 10 years, sometime later. And then coming back to the question, will research funding increase the speed or not? Absolutely. But we need to absolutely design the research funding in a way, what in the fundamental science, what in the more research and development, what needs to cross the death or valley to go into commercialization. This needs to be carefully thought out. 10 times funding, fantastic. So my group size will...
How much is it now,
total funding?
Yeah.
For
all batteries, everywhere.
I don't have that number. Mark, do you have that number?
So actually, the government investment pales in comparison to the commercial investment. Right? If you look at companies like LG Chem, Panasonic, and even Tesla now, they're spending tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions collectively.
Millions or billions?
Millions.
Yeah. Probably government spending is 100 to 200 million also, you think? Yeah, in R&D. Yeah, per year. If you get 10 times, that's already what the DOE budget is. The whole DOE budget is a few billion.
Yeah, but the private companies might find it interesting.
Yes.
But Tesla doesn't look like it's going to make it much cheaper.
That's right, based on the existing technology. Tesla is not inventing inside the battery. They only invent connecting the batteries together and protect them.
Question on the global economy of lithium. What fraction now of lithium is recovered from recycled batteries, and will that increase?
Well, first of all, recycled battery is necessary to take out the lithium, take out the cobalt, take out the valuable stuff, and also copper. And percentage-wise, I don't have that number. I suspect that will grow bigger and bigger. That's absolutely needed. You don't want to waste that lithium.
What is the mechanism of the lithium dendrite growth?
The dendrite growth.
Yeah, why is it lithium dendrites growing? What causes that?
So imagine you have a conducting surface. lithium start to deposit, ideally you would like to have it deposit uniformly everywhere, no dendrite. But unfortunately, there will got to be a few spots that's hotspot, which is either due to this decomposition compound SEI layer, solid electrolyte interface is not uniform, there's a crack. The crack part lithium will deposit faster. Once the lithium deposit faster and stick their head out, they're going to see a lot of lithium ion, they grow faster. So that will amplify.
Could fuel cells do better than lithium batteries? Fuel cells?
Could fuel cells? These fuel cells intrinsically is not too different from the batteries. Fuel cell using fuel. This is how I look at this. The battery rely on electrons going in, ions going in, right? These two. And you need delocalized electron moving, basic conduction. Fuel cell using chemical fuel, hydrogen fuel cell, and methane base. These are very localized covalent bonding. And then in order to take out the electrons, it's much harder. Covalent bonding is too localized. And that's why fuel cells efficiency so far, number one, efficiency is actually not as high as what you think, unless you go to high temperature. And then fuel cell require you, depending on what kind of fuel cell, hydrogen will be hydrogen storage problem all come, infrastructure all come. If it's a methanol fuel cell, and then that carbon, having that carbon right there, this coking problem always, then you need to go to high temperature. Coking means your decomposition is not complete, and then it poisons your catalyst. I think fuel cell is still a viable approach, if you can figure out all this problem and figure out the catalyst cause problem. And still a viable approach. In principle, is a high energy density technology because it's chemical fuel, but also because it's chemical fuel, that localized bonding, we don't know how to deal with that. The most efficient way is to use fuel, now still burning, high temperature.
From your slides, it seems that you think aluminum is not a viable thing in the recent future, but there seems to be news that Stanford scientists has developed a new
I'm
aluminum.
very aware of that, yeah. Hongjie's
Could
work.
you make some comments on
It's
that?
a good science. As I said, it's good science. I'm predicting only commercialization. I'm only predicting that. I'm not predicting whether science is interesting. And it's very interesting science. It's how to move beyond single valent ions. Magnesium, aluminum, all these are all very interesting things. But look at how many things need to go in order to get to the rechargeable batteries with a commercial interest. I just think it's not within 15 years or 20 years. There's no cathode, viable cathode available. There's no electrolyte. There's no the right sort, really working well. There's too many problems right there. If you go into each interface, each material to look at the problem, it will take a long time.
Sure. So let's thank our speaker again. If you have any more questions, I'm sure you can take them at the end.
Thank you.